farmers. And then we decided in those days, this is the ideal place to start with a demo farm. What can be done? Because nothing was known in those days. Number one, we collected more than 125 different tree species, seeds, and proved, let's say, and tried to propagate them and tried to get them into the field in a certain combination on a lot of about 4 hectares in here, 4.5 hectares, subdivided into sub-lots. And by this means having as well a little bit of possibility to look after it. And out of these 125, at the end of the day, 25 roughly, yeah, 3 species are recommended to the farmers. And then it started like this, you see, as I have recommended as well in Sri Lanka. First the pioneers. For example, some of those big trees which have fallen now are pioneers, like for example Melia dubia, here in this case. Yeah? And these pioneers, and in the shade of these pioneers, you get those dipterocarps. You see, for example, something slender like that or something like this, all those. Yeah? And as well in different combinations, different varieties, just in a dry form. Because you can see one thing quite nicely with this one. The big tree is the pioneer, yeah? But the dipterocarps, as most botanists or let's say from the tropics know, they just grow through the canopy up into the very level, top level, and there they start to build big branches and get their crown. And this is exactly the reason why they are so precious. Because you have then about 40 meters up a trunk, nearly without any big branches. And therefore, absolutely splendid tropical timber called Meranti. Yeah? This is Meranti Puri, Meranti Merah, and so on. And this sort of material we tried now to put just in on a, not randomized, but on a systematic, but placing it together because we are as well interested in studying at the end of the day which trees from the forest are fitting together because they have different crowns, yeah? They have different growth necessities, and of course they have as well different successions. That means we are recommending the farmers not only one tree and then this is a plantation, and at the end of the day he has to clear fell everything, opening up the entire area again, but he is harvesting at the end of the day. Whether some of those dipterocarps, which are usually, you see the first studies were gap studies in the forest, because we needed to know what sort of pioneers are actually there. What are the pioneers? So in a forest where there was a landslide or a big fallen tree, we studied what is coming first. And they were the pioneers. They are broadleaf, usually, like Mataranga, for example. And let's say the others are, for example, the dipterocarps are usually sitting in a seed bed, seedlings bed, not a seed bed. You will not find here in the tropics a layer of seeds on the ground for a long time, but seedlings. There they are. And if they get the opportunity, you just go, if there is a gap. In Europe we have the seed bed, that are the seeds which are sitting on the ground, because we have not the climate here. If a seed here is sitting too long on the ground, he is just watching. And that was as well an interesting thing, to find out that the viability of those seeds to sprout is sometimes very short, sometimes only a couple of weeks. And if it's not done, if they have no chance to do it then, they just die. And that is one of the reasons why in all textbooks in the past it was said you cannot breed a dipterocarp in a nursery. Because they brought in the 20s seeds from here, the botanists from Kent, from England, from the botanical garden in Buitenzorg, yes, in those times, Kebun Raya, yeah, to Europe. They placed it into the best of the soil, but it didn't come out because they have transported them in their rucksack for months already. Some came out up until everything, all nutrients were used up, and then they died off. This was the second thing, because most of those trees need a special mycorrhiza in connection with their roots. And if they would have brought a handful of soil, original soil from here, to those gardens, like in England or wherever, it would have been possible to grow them, at least some of them. Otherwise not. So they said it's not possible. And that was never proper tested again for decades. And we found, for example, then as well, we just walked through this path. That was as well grass. And one of the foresters, Kimio, yeah, he thought, why not trying it? It is all the time said Diptocarps need shade. All. So he took one, I think that is Diptocarpus validus, over there, and just placed it, and we said, yes, try it out. Placed it into the bright sun, and miraculously it grew to what you see now. Trees, without any shade. So at least for Diptocarpus validus, it's already proved that you can use it straight away in the sun. White line. And this sort of like experimental things are all in here. Yeah, still ongoing. Yeah, and by this means now we have the final proof under the climatic situation. That was the mega typhoon Haiyan. We had never such a. We had small ones, little ones in here, but never something like that. And now we can even see on our sites, on various places, they were of course as well affected, but in a less percentage than all the other exotic sort of plantations, like the Chimalina plantations, like the mahogany plantations even, and for example as well, all the rest which came from abroad into this country. So the rule which we have in rainforestation, stick to the indigenous set of trees. This is the very basic rule. Then you can combine whatever you like. But don't go the easy way, acacias in, eucalyptus in, gimelinas in, whatever in from outside, because the foresters want to have a fast-growing kind of timber production, mainly even not for high-quality timber, but for pulp and paper. Yeah? Like you have it in Kalimantan, entire landscapes, yeah, full of eucalyptus. Yeah? And this is not something a farmer can afford to do. Maybe a big company, but not a farmer. So there has not to be recommended at all. So this is the basic rule. Stick to the indigenous, but to do so, you need first to know what's available. And this is one of the big problems in the moment already. Because in the past, everywhere there was a lot of, let's say, extraction. And of course they extracted the best trees, not the weak ones. Yeah? And of course by this, the gene pool was immediately deteriorating even to a point that even if you have not good mother trees, you don't get good seeds anymore. And this is sometimes a big problem now already, after it was realized, even here you have heard yesterday by the government, but a near to nature agroforestry, forest, near to nature. It has to be used, or it should be even used, but in a way that it's sustainable and that there is never again a sort of clear felling system, opening up the landscape for any rain coming down. You have then everything, and by this means we are combining three things in the rainfall system. The ecological functions are back: water retention, mulching, and so on and so on. Yeah? All this is back here on that spot. It was not 20 years ago. Just grassland. Next thing, we give, if the farmer is using it in a proper way, we are training as well the farmer at least to move partly from a sun-demanding agriculture into a shade-tolerating agriculture. For example, and this is with the cardamom. Yeah? And the third thing, and give him, let's say, a short-term income as long as the plants are not yet big. He can grow whatever he has grown before. Yeah? If there is already a short kind of canopy, he's moving into more and more shade-tolerant crops. And at the end of the day, he has even on top of these, this is like a saving account, the trees itself. For that reason, for example, the final thing is, after getting the Ecofund spec, after having a subsistence, let's say, securing system in, the biodiversity. With a eucalyptus or with an acacia or a Chimelina, you don't get the local biodiversity back. Because, of course, those organisms like insects, butterflies, lizards, name it, yeah, they need the local material to propagate themselves and to do what is needed. Because, you see, we have now already the first cases on that globe, and then you have to do it by hand. And that can be seen. I have a picture of it. In China, people are standing in the cherry trees and with a Q-tip, which you are cleaning usually your ears, they are playing bee. Really? So this is just greatness.
And in some hotels I've seen that they import bee boxes and place it temporarily for the
No, in China really they are sitting in the trees. Thousands
So it's a new sort of occupation.
Cherries
Fine, but not a profession which I would like to do. Yeah? Anyhow, so we will just walk a little bit up there so that you get an impression. All the very big ones, and this is now what Marlita will explain to you, all those biggies are either already before there or are pioneers. Right? Please.
I have one small question. Yeah. This rattan or cane, these plants here, and you have the, can be harvested. I have thought about that and about...
You see here it's about a big growth with this very thick kind of cane. And
they are waiting here.
They are everywhere, you see, and as well in some of those...
It's night, I think. And they there's wood you have to let in the forest.
You planted to the farmer that there's wood they shall let in the forest as a no source.
Yes.
And not to
take, not to harvest.
Okay.
Okay, so participants are busy
enjoying the...
All right, so just
okay. So during the typhoon, we observed that was a very strong typhoon. So we have here a very interesting species. This Phalianthus quadrilatus. Kagaya na po.
What is the name again?
Phalianthus quadrilatus or tuog in our dialect. Yeah. And after the typhoon, 1 month after the typhoon, these tree flowers. This one. And normally, logging company don't harvest this type of tree because it easily warp. If you try to slice this one for lumber, it will warp.
Yeah.
So, and then what we are like one? Okay, these are now the widlings, and this is the seeds over here. So we are now collecting this one because we found out if you go to Samar area is the place where Typhoon Yolanda or Hainan landed, and most of the trees that stand there are this type of or this species. That's why we are propagating now. We are growing now a lot of seedlings in order to to use this one for restoration in that place. So very interesting, and it was my first time to see the flower working with rainforestation since 1991. It was my first time to see the flower. And this particular tree will only flower if there is a very strong wind.
Oh yeah.
And then it flower. Yeah. Because since when we started developing this area, I haven't seen any flower.
But after.
But after the typhoon,
Oh yeah.
all those
It
trees
wake up.
flower.
That is threatened, they feel threatened.
Yeah, one is, of course, it's a signal to the tree that they should flower because maybe they will die.
Yeah.
But second, maybe this tree will wait for a very strong stress, which is the wind, and then they start flowering. So we are now growing and propagating. We will see it in our nursery. So this is an existing. We did not plant this one.
Yeah.
So we developed this area since 1990, and it is my first time to see the flower.
Just
No?
one time.
Yeah, one time. I don't know next how many years that the same strong wind will go back.
So this time is time to collect this.
Yes, now we are collecting.
Okay.
So this demo farm is designed for research. So it's the only demo farm of all the rainforestation, because the one that we will visit this afternoon is a farmer cooperator's farm. It's the adapter. So the demo farm, because if we are talking about demo farm, everything is put into like labor, invested into to look into the research stage.
Not for the profit.
Not for the profit. And we will not harvest this. No? Just to combine everything. And then, as far as what Professor Goldenboth emphasized, that after that, we will recommend what specific trees for a specific type of soil and climatic condition to the farmer. So, in this case, this is the demo farm, the type of typologies that we are promoting in areas for watershed restoration and habitat restoration. So you don't need to harvest, just collect all those native trees and put it there. So yesterday there was a presentation of from the Sri Lankan representative. You have this biodiversity vegetation assessment, and you found out that Makaranga and Trema are fast growing, and it is true. But these are short-lived, fast growing trees.
Of course, yes.
But you need, because after 7 years they will die.
They'll die.
So eventually, you should put also pioneers which are long-lived. In our case, we have this Pterocarpus indicus. We have also Dracontomylon dao. But of course, you have to look into the habitat. So if you are looking into watershed restoration, in our case, we use or we recommend trees that grows near the creek or usually near the river. Those are very, the one that is really recommended for watershed restoration. But if you are looking into habitat, you should do not forget to put ficus. Because ficus are the food plants of the birds.
Yeah.
And then they go there, they eat. It's like a supermarket market.
And
for
they
the
bring
birds.
other seeds in.
Yes.
What is ficus?
Ficus? You don't know ficus? It's a species of tree that
Fig trees, like
fig. Yeah, fig.
Do you have the Latin name?
Yeah, ficus.
Ficus.
Yeah.
Ficus.
Yeah, different species.
Yeah, different
Yeah, so
species.
many.
You have a lot of species of ficus. I think you have in Vietnam. I don't know.
Sure you have.
It has a white sap, and it produces a lot of fruits.
And some aerial roots as well.
Yes.
Palianthus.
Yeah, Palianthus quadrilatus. Yeah, quadrilatus.
It is
No? Palianthus?
Piterianthus.
Huh?
Piterianthus.
Piterianthus, sorry. Piterianthus quadrilatus. This is the Latin name. Yeah, that's the Latin name. The parent material is volcanic. And we have a lot of clay minerals.
Okay.
So, we have a very interesting here, another tree. This was planted in 1994. No? Before, it was emphasized by Professor Goldenboth that this is just a grassland. And then we planted Dipterocarp, this one. This is Shuria contorta, or white mirante. No? So, planted in 1994, and now you can see how big the tree. So it's about more than mga 40 centimeter, 45 or 50 centimeter diameter. So by the way, we use this demo farm not only for farmers but also for our instruction. Like Inan, for instance. Inan is our colleague from the college. He's a forester, and he always bring his student here for the taxonomy. And also we have another colleagues from the soil department. He is always monitoring the fertility of the soils. So in this area, we are not only monitoring the vegetation, but also the flora, the fauna, and also the physical
Soil nutrient.
soil nutrient. So this is what we are doing here. So it serves not only for restoration purposes, but also for other discipline to look into, study more.
Example.
Yes.
Give an
Example.
example.
Yeah, soil, for instance. Or even the taxonomy, because before there is no, just imagine if this is just a grassland. So normally student will go to the fragmented forest, and it took about 1 hour to walk, and you lose a lot of time. So now it's just near, so you can just collecting. By the way, the total number of species that we were able to plant here is about 263 species of trees.
What is the density per acre?
Density per hectare, very difficult because there is no planting distance actually.
Right. You planted
It's not
randomized.
randomized because the intention here is to look into different combination of trees.
But you can get an estimate of it.
Okay, yeah. If you want to,
kind of you
it's about 1,200 per hectare. So that's the density here. But it's too much for if you are looking into timber production or like rainforestation farming, because here it's impossible to plant crops. But of course, you can utilize those shade-tolerant species. So like cardamom.
Like cardamom, like gingers, like a number of pineapple species.
But coffee here is, I don't know, but maybe the yield is not really good. Or abaca is not really good. So because you need to really consider the density per hectare.
But you could also try, if you can introduce, there are certain species of yams and tubers that grow in rainforest conditions as low as 35% light.
We have even climbing ubi.
Yeah.
Even
We have-
climbing ones.
Yeah, you can see it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tomorrow in another
In another
cooperator farm. So if you will visit to the cooperator adapters farm, they are planting the trees in rows because they are looking into the economic side. But as what I have said, our intention here is to look into the science side, so that we can really promote by using science. Because it's really difficult to make research in the farmer side. Because if the research is failure, the farmer will be angry with you. So much better to do the research first here and then promote it
To the farmer.
So,
and that's the intention that we are establishing trials.
so what is your recommendation, or how many trees per hectare are to recommend?
Okay, depending on the crop. Like for instance, we have a very good study with abaca, which is a fiber banana. So we I highly recommend that you should have a density of 100 trees per hectare, and then you can plant 1,600 abaca per hectare.
And how does the canopy close of the 100 trees?
Okay, you have at least a light infiltration of about 40%.
40%.
Yes. No, not 40, 60%.
65,
60% light infiltration.
You're saying 100 of these per hectare.
Yes. These are also nitrogen fixing indigenous trees. Like in one of our island that we visited, it's Erythrina fosca. Here in Leyte, we usually use Erythrina fosca. But in other island, like in central part of the Visayas, they use this kanibang kariskis.
Nitrogen fixing
Kariskis. Libicoides. Yeah, libicoides. It's a nitrogen fixing.
with
saying you play
mycorrhiza.
No. Nitrogen fixing, it's more on the bacteria, the rhizobium.
Yeah, rhizobium.
But mycorrhiza is a fungus.
Fungus.
Different.
If
What
you
is
plant
the
100 of
bacteria?
these per hectare, then you can farm underneath it.
Yes.
Trees are all
Yeah.
And are those trees not to be cut down?
mycorrhiza.
Yeah, because that serves as a shade tree. So that's why we normally recommend also fruit trees. Because because if you are using for lumber, so eventually you will end up to cut the tree.
Okay.
But if you use some fruit trees also,
It's 100 per hectare.
yes, so at least you can get income from the fruit trees
Yeah, okay.
at the same time. But of course, we recommend windbreaks of indigenous tree, so that Yeah, like what happened with a very strong typhoon. So if you have a windbreak, so it will protect your fruit trees and your
If in the future, for example, would it be possible to recommend this To'ok as windbreak?
yes, not future, but now it's proven that this from 305 kilometers per hour typhoon,
You see?
then you can use To'ok.
Because that would be an ideal sort of
Yes,
windbreak.
yes, yes. So it's really a very, with the Yolanda, we have a very
See,
good
what you could do
knowledge
is
that
you could get the meteorological department if they have the data of what direction the wind generally tends to turn on average. And what you do is you plant belts at 90 degrees to that angle. Then it kind of
yeah,
immediately-
that's a good idea, but right now there is a change on the track, the typhoon, because of this climate change. Like in the southern part of the Philippines, this is Mindanao, normally there is no typhoon. But right now, there even last week, there was a typhoon
Land is owned
that
by
went to
who?
Mindanao.
Land owned by
To Davao.
VSU.
Yeah, they own
And
the
normally
district.
there is no typhoon.
Owned by the
Same when I
government.
was in here last time.
Yes.
That one
VSU.
So there is a
VSU uses it.
change
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
track, and
Yeah,
right
yeah.
now the climatic, the climate meteorological department, they are looking into the changes in this.
Excuse me, after you have experience for to put this, you have a kind of the book. Are you writing in the book?
That's what I recommended in my presentation, that we should also document our VSU experience on rainforestation for 20 years. And we are looking into that, hopefully, that we can share and document. But, the VSU experience, we have different stages of rainforestation. So this is the oldest, because we started here as a demo farm. We have only one demo farm. It's only this one, but the other one is
model farms.
a model farm. Yeah, demo farm.
So this is a demo farm, and the other ones are the model
Yeah,
farms.
yeah.
It's where you have
Operators,
this idea.
Operating
adapters,
adapted
yeah,
model
farm.
farms.
So
You're doing it with the community.
yes, those are. As soon as we visit there, we don't pay the labor.
Yeah.
It's their counterpart.
Yeah.
Because if you are working with grassroots communities, they have a lot of labor
Yes,
availability. But of course, they need capital. So what we did is we give them free the seedlings, the planting materials,
They do the planting.
but they do the planting. But in the contract, in the memorandum of agreement, they should pay.
For me,
species.
absolutely surprising that something like that can happen in 20 years' time. It's nearly nothing. Absolutely. And if I come with foresters, they very often even don't believe it. Yeah? This was grassland. And if you have not a proper documentary, they say, you can tell us whether you're right. Yeah? But at the end of the day, we will go to another sort of language because they never track it down. You see, this is one of those things that I was very surprised. Why don't people go the easy way and even not try what they would like to achieve? High quality.
Basta kita, yun ang mga matibay ngayon na mabilis. Pioneer. Saka
You see, this is what I say. In German, we have one expression to have a piece of numbers in front of your brain. Yeah? This is obstructing your vision. And in some areas, foresters have, they don't see, you see, sometimes I'm even more close to those guys. Yeah? They don't get the point. I say, you don't see a living thing in a tree, but just a piece of wood.